Rahmat Erwin Abdullah, the prodigal son, one of the faces of the last quad in weightlifting, has returned. We haven't seen him compete, obviously, since the last chance qualifier, but he has returned at the Indonesian National Championships. Also returning is Rizki Juniansyah, the Olympic champion, the man who dethroned the prodigal son. So in this episode of the Weightlifting House News Show, we're going to compare them. We're going to talk about their performances and what we can expect for them at the upcoming World Championships in Bahrain. Also, if you head to the weightliftinghouse.com store and go to our accessories, you can get any 3 accessories for the price of 2. That includes our leather belt, our wraps, our knee sleeves, all of the good stuff. All of our products are worn by, world champions, Olympic champions. They are tried and tested by the best in the world, and they can be worn by you too. So Erwin Abdullah, just to bring everybody back up to scratch, obviously he dominated the entirety of the last quad. He brought that clean and jerk world record from 198 kilos to 204 kilos. He was absolutely dominant. After being the number 1 ranked 73 in the world for a year and a half, he fell at the final lift. 206 kilos was what he needed, and he cleaned it. He missed the jerk. He sat on the side of the platform. He rested 30 seconds. He stood up. He cleaned it. The bar slipped. He lost his timing. He stood there. He wobbled. He knew that for a split moment, if I don't drop this, I haven't not got my ticket to the Olympics. Then he dropped it. Probably the most iconic moment in the sport that we've seen over the last few years. But he has returned. Obviously, he didn't go to the Olympic Games. Rizki Juniansyah did. So Rahmat turns up to this international competition, and it was really good to see him. He went 6 of 6. I think a lot of us in the weightlifting world, we felt a genuine sense of concern for his well-being after such a tragic loss of not going to that Olympic Games. Not only was it expected from him, he would have received a generous income from having won that Olympic gold medal from Indonesia, plus all these other things, so it was pretty devastating for him. He turns up here. Interestingly, Rizki is not competing in the 73s of this competition. They've separated them out. Now, there are a few interesting things here. One of them is he is definitely opening lighter. I'm sure to some degree he is not fully peaked, doesn't want to reveal his full self, and also he probably doesn't want a repeat of what happened before. So 140, relatively light opener, but also he does take big jumps. That's pretty standard for him. 40 to 47, 47 to 53, so a 7 and then a 6 kilo jump. But they looked good, and he's within, 7 kilos of his best ever snatch. Looks like if he had to, he could have added another 5 kilos on that third attempt, and he probably would have made it. In the clean and jerk, his opener I thought actually looked sort of the hardest and the slowest of all of his clean and jerks, which is crazy. 174, still very easy, still got that same, that really interesting knees come back, knees go way under before he finishes tall, straight into the jerk after the clean. Hits that 174, jumps to 182, 400 pounds, and then another 10 kilos to 192. Altogether, a pretty solid session. 6 of 6, 153, 192. A 345 kilo total, but it was good to see him. He actually looked pretty happy, and seeing him again with his dad, there's one of the angles, there's one of the videos shows him in the back room, and his dad puts the ammonia in his hand, puts it to Rahmat's face, and just seeing that routine that we'd seen so many times over this last quad that failed them at the last lift of the last chance qualifier, seeing that back again was really nice. And actually, I'd spoken to Erwin Abdullah, Rahmat's father, the coach, probably within the last week, asked how Rahmat was getting on. He said to me that, things were pretty tough, honestly, after the last chance qualifier, after not making it to that Olympic Games, and that he wasn't in his full physical or psychological shape yet, but they were building for that for Bahrain. So it's kind of interesting, is Rahmat going to turn up in Bahrain in December for the World Championships in just entering his villain arc, 165, 210, or are we going to see him sort of somewhere in between where he is now and where he has been in the past? My hunch is that we're going to see him come out and go for a world record total. I think he's going to have that in his head. I'm going to show everybody, though I wasn't at the Olympic Games, not only would I have won at the Olympics, but nobody else has ever totaled as much as me. So I can imagine him doing something like 161 and then 205, or maybe, which would be really cool, 160 and then 206, because 206 was the weight that defeated him before. Maybe this time he's not going to let it defeat him. we're gonna have to wait and see. Obviously, we've seen him in training recently. You know, he did these 110 kilo power snatches, which, I mean, they don't tell you much realistically, do they? I mean, a 110 power snatch, it's like 50 kilos under what he's actually snatching in competition. Very hard to gather any real information from that. Seen him also doing some 170-ish jerks off the blocks, which a few months ago I thought looked relatively heavy, but then seeing him come out and hit that 192, I mean, those could well be openers when we see him in Bahrain. 153, 192. So let's move over now to his nemesis, Rizki Juniansyah, who I also was having a conversation with last week. I asked him what kind of shape he was. Is he back to training? He said he was back training already. And then this video was floated. By the way, it's worth saying, at the time of recording this, Rizki has not yet competed. My assumption is that he is competing here at 81 kilos because I saw this video of him in the training hall of the national championships. I didn't know necessarily where it was at first. He did a 160 kilo snatch and he built up to it, and it looked, I would say, as good as we've ever seen him. I know that he's probably one of those athletes who benefits slightly from straps. You know, when he did that 160, 200 attempt session at the last chance qualifier, he had straps on, but then he went on to snatch the 164 in competition, and here he has straps on. He made the 160. Anyway, I messaged him and I said, is this recent? And he said, yes, yesterday at the national championships. So he is there, and he was helping out with some of the women from the national championships as well. So he's obviously there. My assumption is that he competes in a few hours from now. I don't know, but then he did the 190 kilos as well and looked very strong. If he has competed, then Nate, perhaps you could stick this in. Everybody, Nate is the new editor at Weightlifting House. He's absolutely legendary, so shout out to Nate. My prediction is that he is going to do 160 and 195. I think he's going to live pretty well. I think he's going to do 160, 195. And I think he'll do it as a very light 81. Who knows? I may be way off there. But it's interesting that they've kind of separated out him and Rahmat. I think it's not worth them both being in the same category at these national championships because there's such a history of pain between them. I mean, it's interesting. If you go way back in Rizki's Instagram, I think it is, you can see these photos of Rizki and Rahmat from like years and years and years when they're both kids. You know, they're both sort of in the 100 kilo snatch stage, 100, 120, and they're at these national championships. So they've come up side by side. Rahmat sort of entered that international scene a few years prior because he was at the last Olympic Games in the B group, where he medaled famously. But I think separating them out now, I just feel like it wouldn't be good for them to have them both in the same back room for a national championships, attempting 200 kilos. It would be epic. Obviously it would be epic, but for the sake of them both, I think they probably won't. At the World Championships, however, I think it's likely. When I asked Rizki if he was going to be competing at the World Championships, he said he was planning on competing at the World Championships. Both myself and Nate might be heading out to Indonesia, we don't know, to get some documentary style content from one of these athletes. So I think that the build up to that Bahrain World Championships, I think the biggest competition is surely going to be the return of Rizki and Rahmat. I hope at that point they're in the same category again. They're both at 73. And I mean, honestly, who would win? Rizki versus Rahmat. Rizki has got the bigger total, 365. Rahmat feels like he has more in him, but he hasn't ever shown it. So I don't know. Comment down below. I feel like I would go with Rahmat, but right now Rizki's in better shape. So I don't know. Okay, let's stay with this Indonesian Championships very quickly. So let's go to Riko Saputra, the 61 kilo weightlifter who missed out on the Olympics because of Eko Irawan, the 4-time Olympic medalist. Riko Saputra, 132 in the snatch, looked pretty decent, and then attempted a 170 clean and jerk, didn't quite make it. Eko Irawan, who is just such a legend of the sport, actually went in at 67 kilos, which he's done a fair few times recently, weighing in at 67 instead. And he lifted very well. I was actually very impressed. Of course, he bombed out at the Olympic Games, which was a tragedy. But 138 snatch and then 171 clean and jerk, a 309 kilo total. And that 171, he did it with a power jerk as well, I think. That's 1 kilo less than what Lee Farbin hit to win the Olympic Games. I know we did it at 67, but still, for a guy who's been competing for 2 decades internationally, unbelievable stuff. So shout out to Eko Yuli Irawan for that. Okay, let's wrap up with, as I mentioned, I'm counting down the top 10 Sinclairs, the top 10 performances from individual over the last Olympic quad. At number 9 this week, we're going to have, on the women's side, we have Kim Il-gyong, the North Korean 59 kilo weightlifter. So this was at the Grand Prix in Qatar 2023 at the end of last year. She hit, as a 59, 107, 136. So if you think sort of the world records were in the 111, 140 range right now, 107, 136, 243 at the same competition at 59, 332.5 Sinclair, unbelievable. Definitely a threat to Lo Shifang over this next quad. Now that North Korea are going to become eligible for the next Olympic Games in LA. I mean, that's more than we've seen from anyone who isn't Lo Shifang, or then more historically, Kuo Seung-chun. Then on the men's side, number 9, we have the 67 kilo legend, Chen Lijun from China. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about him historically, but let's just talk about this performance because this is his best from qualifying. At the 2023 World Championships at 67, he snatched 153. I mean, that is massive. When you think about what the biggest snatches are in the 61s right now, you're sort of maybe getting into the low 40s. Only Lee Farbin can do it. So 153, and then he hit a 180. Just way too powerful, a 333 kilo total, 474.18 Sinclair. Worth mentioning though, his best performance ever. Chen Lijun is actually the highest ranked Chinese weightlifter of all time by Sinclair. He's above Liu Jiaojun, Tian Tao, Shi Ziyong. I think he's above Lao Hui. Pretty sure he is. Or is he the number 2 ranked? It's in. I wrote the Sinclair Greatest Weightlifters of All Time book so many years ago. I can't now remember if he ranks above. It's one of the two. Anyway, so back in 2015, as a 62 kilo weightlifter, he totaled that same total, 333 kilos. So he did that with a 150 snatch and a 183 clean and jerk. Just take a moment to appreciate that. At 62, so let's compare him to the current 61 kilo category, because there's only a kilo between. Yes, it helps, but it's not like, there's not like a 10 kilo gap there. 150 snatch. The current world record is 146 from Lee Farbin. And at the Olympic Games, Lee Farbin hit what, 143? Chen Lijun did 150. And then the clean and jerk world record currently is 176, Hampton Morris. The most we saw at this Olympics was low 170s. Lee Farbin hit 167 and Chen Lijun did 183. 183 at 62 with a 150 snatch. Unbelievable, 333 kilos. That was 2015. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of history along with the context of the current top Sinclairs. That's going to be it from me today. Make sure you subscribe and like this video for more weightlifting news. Head to weightliftinghouse.com and you can get 3 for 2 across all of our accessories. Any 3 for the price of 2. We'll see you on the next one.